Hi, welcome to this part of my review featuring the Wicked Ones role-playing game. If you haven't seen the other parts of this review, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about character creation. The world of the Wicked Ones is littered with normal monsters, that is, goblin farmers, orc fishermen, weaklings that huddle in their tiny villages far from civilization, hoping humans don't cast an eye on them. But that's not your character. You crave power and riches. You spit on those fools, hiding in their straw huts. No, you are a wicked one, and you're looking to carve out your own place in this world. So you can come up with your own concept of any sort of monster, any sort of species, any sort of race. So your dungeon is going to be filled with all sorts of monsters working together. And here you have some pointers or tips on how to come up with your own monster concept. These are basically themes that you can choose from. Just a guideline to keep things in a particular direction. You could keep it simple, that is, all player characters could be humanoids with 2 arms and 2 legs, nothing bigger than a bugbear or smaller than a kobold. Or maybe you are all family. All player characters must be members of a specific monster race, perfect for a highly themed dungeon. Or it could be anything goes. Player characters are free to play as anything, from oozes to mushroom people to magically awakened evil squirrels. It could be anything, with the game master having the final say according to the campaign. And you don't need to play into stereotypes. That is, you can play as a kobold or a goblin that is quite strong, an orc that focuses more on being sneaky. It's all about your character concept. Maybe there is something in that background or history of a particular monster that made him to specialize in a particular skill set. So maybe that orc had to escape from some prison, and therefore he specialized in opening locks and moving through different enemy territories without being seen. Or maybe because that kobold or that goblin had a very rough childhood, he had to train a lot, and he is now the strongest of all the kobolds or strongest of all the goblins. Things like that. However, if a race has a unique ability, something beyond being a simple bipedal creature that functions similarly to a human, it's represented in the following 2 ways. Primal monsters are monsters with multiple unique abilities, or require gameplay changes that fundamentally alter how they interact with the game's core mechanics. And there could be monsters that have some unique ability that other monsters can't do, but don't require extensive mechanical changes. You can take the primal ability to bring them into play. This is detailed later on. So when setting up the dungeon, it's recommended that all of the player characters are new to the area. This means that any backstory the character has is light on details and mostly irrelevant. A greater emphasis is put on how the monster develops and interacts within the dungeon, and outside of it, of course, when you are going out for conquest. When it comes to typical player character races, there's a plethora of fantasy monster races that work fine as player characters, but you have 6 specific character species in this book to get started. They are just templates, that is, they are examples on how you can create any sort of creature. If you want trolls, zombies, wights, quaggots, anything that you can think of, you can create those creatures with this system. And all monster factions speak a common language called the Dark Tongue, while civilized factions speak the Light Tongue. So there won't be obstacles when it comes to communication within the same group of monsters. Neutral factions might know one, both, or neither of these languages. It's rare for a member of a civilized faction to know the Dark Tongue, or a monster to know the Light Tongue. Now let's go through the steps of character creation. You choose a monster species or a race, following the theme your group agreed upon. You should focus on choosing something that sounds or you imagine that it is quite fun to play. Then you choose a calling. You have several callings to choose from. They are kinda like character archetypes or classes. Your calling defines how you go about your monstrous work. So you could be a brute, a conniver, a crafter, a hunter, a marauder, a shadow, a shaman, a warlock, or a zealot. Each calling provides you with a core ability, which lets you spend stress to do something no other calling can do. You also have flashbacks, which allows you to perform actions in the past that a member of your calling would have likely thought to do. You also have calling abilities that lets you customize what type of member of your calling you are. And you have a flexibility slot, which lets you take a single calling ability from another calling's list. So there is a bit of multi-classing in that sense. Some abilities allow you to spend stress to perform incredible feats. And core abilities can be used on resistance rolls when you're not able to use an action to resist due to the action having weak effect. Now when it comes to step 3, choosing a calling ability, you begin play with your calling's core ability and one calling ability from your calling's list. Then we have choose your actions, step 4. You look through the list of actions and choose the ones that best match what your character is good at doing. So you place a number of dots in what you think your character is best at doing. You put less dots in another action in which you are somewhat dependable, in other actions where you are more or less capable, and you just put a single dot in 2 other actions. That represents you have very little practice in those actions. Then you choose your dark impulse. This is step 5. You look through the list of dark impulses and choose the one that best describes what pulls at your character's attention. You gain a dark heart when you make your choice. Maybe you have the big mouth, dark impulse, or cruel, deranged, fickle, obsessed, paranoid, reckless, or vengeful. Then you have step 6, choose your revelry. You look through the list of revelries and choose how your character likes to blow off steam. Maybe you have a craving, you are into drinking, gambling, the occult, violence, or worship. Next, in step 7, you choose your gear, supply, and gear defense. You choose 4 items as your gear, the things you always carry on you, and decide your gear defense. Then you choose another 2 items that you begin with in your supply. Each calling has a list of example items to give you some ideas. One of the items you choose can be a valuable item, an item with an edge or a tier 1 contraption, magic item, or 3 doses of a potion or concussion. You can also take 1 gold instead of this. Then in step 8, you pick a vile friend. Once your dungeon is established, you choose a monster in the region you've made friends with during the initial dungeon setup montage. We will talk more about that later on. This vile friend gives you an easy way to connect to the world outside of your dungeon. They are more or less friendly towards you and can be paid for help, items, information, and so forth. Next we have examples of the different creatures that you can create. You have bugbears. Bugbears are huge creatures prone to rage and not exactly known for their intellect. They tend to see themselves as natural leaders and think they should be in charge. Next we have demons. They are minor hellspawn that have somehow found their way into the mortal world. They tend to enjoy chaos, especially lies, which they think mortals react to in ridiculous ways. You also have goblins. They are short, black-hearted creatures. They are foul-tempered and unliked by just about everyone, but tend to really love themselves. They are industrious and single-minded when working on a task. Then we have kobolds. They are small, raucous creatures. They look like a mix between a rodent, a dog, and a lizard. They are hyperactive and aggressive, with short attention spans. They usually prefer working together on something. Then we have orcs. They are foul-mannered, callous creatures. They are stubborn and overly sensitive to slights from others. They tend to approach problems with the first solution that comes to mind. Then we have Slisics. They are snake-like creatures that tend to react defensively to surprise and feel the need to always keep an eye on those around them. They have terrible memories though, and all of these different monsters come with quotes and common names for that particular species. Next we have information on primal ability. Some species or races have their own natural abilities that allow them to do something that other monsters can't. To represent these natural abilities, you can take primal ability when you make a character in place of your calling's core ability or first chosen calling ability. Creating a primal ability or coming up with a primal ability for your character is a balancing act. It can easily overshadow other calling abilities, so the Game Master should maintain a tight purview over it. It's better to keep its capabilities limited somehow. Some abilities are simply too powerful to allow for normal player characters to have, so it's important to keep this in mind. Some abilities such as flight or natural invisibility can be highly disruptive to campaigns, bypassing several challenges that would otherwise be interesting to deal with. So Game Masters need to take this into consideration if they allow such abilities or not. Now let me give you more details about the different callings. First we have the Brute. Powerful and intimidating brawlers. You're called to battle and delight in facing down your enemies, chopping them to pieces in brutal combat. For you, the bloodier the better. Your confidence with a weapon in hand manifests outside of combat when commanding others, bellowing orders like you expect them to be obeyed, and bashing heads on the off chance they aren't. You have the core ability of Rage. You can spend stress to perform an incredible feat of strength, like throwing a large boulder or tackling a charging horse. You can flashback to things such as torturing a prisoner, threatening violence. When it comes to brute abilities, you have things such as Assault, Fury, Menace, Taskmaster. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory, but for example, when it comes to Taskmaster, you gain a downtime action which you can only use to recruit minions or sacrifice to have minions perform a downtime action without paying them gold. Next we have the Conniver, the manipulative and controlling mastermind. You lurk in the background pulling the strings, laying out intricate plans and having others do your bidding. For you, revenge is a dish best served cold. Methodical is an understatement. You're in complete control at all times. Your core ability is Strings. You can spend stress to have an ally remember your voice in their head, allowing them to reroll a failure. If they roll a success, you gain a Dark Heart. You can flashback to things a conniver would have thought to do, such as manipulating others, setting up contingency plans. When it comes to your abilities, you have Intuition, Opportunist, Tongues, and Wordplay. Then we have the Crafter, the clever and curious tinkerer. You spend hours in your workshop, mixing together alchemical reagents and constructing dangerous devices with a gleeful disregard for your own safety. You strap up before you leave the dungeon, well prepared for any situation. You begin with the Ingenuity core ability. You can spend stress to perform an incredible feat of creation, like mixing concussions on the fly, or slapping together a temporary simple contraption. You can flashback to things a crafter would have thought to do, such as sabotaging structures or grabbing materials. When it comes to your crafter abilities, you have Brewmaster, Monster Science, Prototype, Scrutiny. Then we have the Hunter, Ruthless and Tenacious Trackers. You are at home running with the beasts of the forest. Relentlessly chasing down prey brings you closer to the animal inside of you. And yet, you're deliberate, never missing a sign, always on the trail, and when you finally corner your target, there's no hesitation to finish it. You have the core ability of Thrill of the Hunt. You can spend stress to establish a small, momentary weakness in your prey. You gain a plus effect when you exploit this on your next roll to stalk, catch, or bring them down. On a success, you gain a Dark Heart. You can flashback to things a hunter would have thought to do, such as setting a trap or scouting out a location. You have abilities such as Feral Senses, Hunting Pet, Scout, Scavenger. Next, we have the Marauder, a cunning and fearless warrior. For you, battle is a dance. The thrill of outmaneuvering your enemies sends blood pumping through your veins. Your moves are precise and calculated, and your awareness of the field of battle gives you the ability to see the bigger picture in other situations as well. When it comes to your core ability, you have Battle Master. You can spend stress to perform an incredible feat of athletics, like throwing an axe a great distance, or maneuvering nearly anywhere on the field of battle. You can flashback to things a Marauder would have thought to do, such as giving orders to minions or surveying a target's strength. When it comes to your abilities, you have Bulwark, Commander, Joy of Battle, Tactician. Then we have the Shadow, a sneaky and elusive rogue. You're at home in the darkness, lurking unseen. You can slip into and out of areas unnoticed. The element of surprise is your greatest weapon, and you can often find your way into and out of the trickiest situations. Your core ability is Prowler. You can spend stress to perform an incredible feat of agility, like slipping unimpeded through a mob, or leaping safely from a high tower. You can flash back to things a shadow would have thought to do, such as snatching something valuable, or lying to create an opportunity. When it comes to your abilities, you have Poisoner, Pounce, Slippery, Stalker. Then we have the Shaman, a terrifying and vengeful witch. You understand the dark power of nature and are drawn to the hidden world of spirits. You might revere them and seek their favor, or perhaps enslave them for your own purposes. Either way, the spirits speak, and you hear their mad whispers of vengeance. Your core ability is Witchcraft. You have mastered a magic path. You choose from Blood Reading, Soothsaying, Spirit Calling, Storm Strike, Wild Heart. You can spend stress to invoke Tier 2 and Tier 3 spells of your path. You can flash back to things a shaman would have thought to do, such as interacting with spirits or animals, or brewing a wild concussion. You have abilities such as Beast Form, Bonded Spirit, Spirit Whispers, or Wild Brews. Then we have the Warlock, a daring and ambitious mage. You reach out and grab raw, arcane magic by its neck and bend it to your will. You dabble in dangerous arts and know that true power must be wrested away from others. A deep, unquenched thirst for power dwells inside of you. Your core ability is Sorcery. You have mastered a magic path. You choose from Enchantment, Evocation, Force Mastery, Illusion, Necromancy, or Pyromancy, and you can spend stress to invoke Tier 2 and Tier 3 spells of your path. You can flash back to things a Warlock would have thought to do, such as acquiring arcane knowledge or striking occult deals. Your Warlock abilities are Artificer, Counterspell, Familiar, Grand Sorcery. Then we have Zealot, Fervent and Mystical Believers. You heed the words of your dark god. You believe in them fiercely, knowing that those who serve will be rewarded. The more believers you can recruit, the higher the chance your god will recognize you. They bestow power onto you, from which your intense conviction comes. Your core ability is Channeling. You can spend stress to invoke Tier 2 and Tier 3 spells of your chosen deity's domains. Each god has 2 domains, which act as magic paths. You can flash back to things a Zealot would have thought to do, such as interrogating non-believers or making sacrifices. Your abilities are Defiler, Fervent Aura, Smite, Unholy Rituals. Then we have an example of gameplay. It is called a Wolf Pelt for a ritual. The player characters broke their new prisoner and learned he was a merchant's son. They then used the library to establish that the family are renowned hunters. Now they are breaking into the family estate to secure a wolf pelt needed for a ritual of lycanthropy. First we have Slem, the Slissic Shadow. I'm gonna climb up the wall with finesse and get a better look. The Game Master replies, simple enough, let's see that roll. Slem rolls 2 dice, finesse, and gets a success. Slem speaks. I make it up easily. Perched up here, I'm going to scan to see where the dogs the merchant's son told us about are sleeping. The Game Master replies, it's night and you can't see everything from where you are at. It's going to be a weak effect. Slem rolls 2 dice of scan and gets a mixed result. The Game Master speaks. You're kinda limited on the info you can gain right now. Let's say that you don't spot the dogs, but you're sure they're not in the outer courtyard. Most likely they are sleeping in the house. Crag, the kobold shaman, replies, I tried to scramble up the wall too. I have 0 die in smash and finesse, but they are the only actions that make sense. At least I'll get practice XP. Slem replies, I'll assist, reaching a hand down to help out. That way we can at least be sure to get you up here on a mixed. The Game Master replies, makes sense. That'll be strong effect then. Remember that you're both open to consequences here. Crag rolls 0 die of smash, 2 dice keep the lowest, that is, and gets a mixed result. The Game Master continues. Looks like you both go tumbling off the wall. Crag, you'll also end up with muscles shock. Crag replies,
I walk up to the wall, then take several steps backwards, measuring it out. It looks calculated, like I know what I'm doing. Then I take off, running as fast as I can, and put a foot onto the wall and launch myself up it and away from the wall. I yell, uh-oh, as I reach out.
Slem replies,
Yeah, I see him about to throw himself away from the wall and, you know, I'm already committed, so I reach out and grab him. The momentum pulls us both off and I guess I land on top of him.
Ulrot, the Orc Brute, speaks.
I just stand there shaking my head watching all of this. It's a strike. We get in fast. We get what we need. We get out. What the hell are you doing? I run straight at the wall, put my shoulder down, and try to bash through it. My minion pack's gonna be right behind me too.
The Game Master speaks. I don't know. I mean, it's a reinforced wall built to not be knocked over. I just don't think it would work. It feels like 0 effect. Ulrot speaks.
Yeah, obviously I'm gonna spend stress and rage here.
The Game Master continues. Well, that's a different story. A second ago, I was a bit torn between whether it was 0 or weak effect here, but with rage, I think it'll bump you up to normal effect. Make the roll. Ulrot rolls 3 dice of smash and gets a mixed result. The Game Master continues. Yeah, you break through the wall, but your greedy minions are going to follow you through the hole, then run off to start looting on their own. Ulrot speaks.
So I smash through the wall, sending rocks flying everywhere. As the dust settles, I see my orc raiders poke their heads through the hole, look around, and get the bright idea to go looting. Suddenly, there's a loud crack of my whip lashing. I'm using my gear defense against minion mistakes here. I point at the house, and they do as they are told.
The Game Master speaks. The noise has woken up everyone in the house. You hear the dogs in there barking. The door opens and the dogs come busting out. Crag speaks.
Hold up! I'm gonna spend stress and do a quick flashback to On the Way to the States. I want to have hunted down a boar. I know it's not something a shaman is too likely to do, but I'm a wild-heart shaman, so I think it makes sense. For the hunting, I just want to tinker a trap.
The Game Master speaks. Yeah, I could see Crag doing that. Let's see the roll. Crag rolls 2 dice of tinker and gets a success. Crag continues.
Awesome! It was a simple pit trap and I butchered the boar that I caught. Throwing the meat would come in handy. So right now I push Slam off me, then stand up and pull out huge hunks of meat from my bag. Hey Pops, who's hungry?
And that concludes this part of the review for today. As you can see, the character creation system allows you to come up with any concept. You have enough examples concerning callings and different species and races to even create your own. So it's a very simple to understand system, allowing for the creation of memorable monsters. So thank you for watching this part of the review, and thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending DriveThruRPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.